Hi, how's it going? This is President of Collinwood for YouTube, back with another Dark Shadows video for you guys. My first Dark Shadows video of November. Um, this video, not everyone could be Quentin Collins, just as Charles Delaware Tate. It's really interesting how we're introduced to both these men. We're introduced to Quentin as a ghost. Um, Now, whether you believe that ghost is Judah Zachary is another matter. I don't know. Again, it's really interesting. It's a hell of a theory by my buddy Patrick McRae. Now, when we meet the actual person, there's a big difference. And, other than not quite the look, mind you, but this character has a personality. He's very charming. He's very witty. He has a way with women. You'd swear this guy just walked off a James Bond film and was. If you were to ask me who was more the American version of Bond, Dick Tracy or Quentin Collins, I would strongly debate anyone. Quentin Collins had more swagger than Dick Tracy ever thought about having, because he just did. I mean, David Selby's performance here is on par with any, surpasses a lot of just. I'm trying to think of a way to compare this because this is so difficult. Okay, I think I have a way. I've told you guys that when you look at actors, other actors, for example, let's look at Clint Eastwood's characters. I would dare say David Selby could have played any of those characters Clint Eastwood played and been as big as a movie star. Now, David Selby's career path was a tad different than what Clint Eastwood's was. Clint Eastwood started off in westerns. David Selby didn't. And David Selby, though, played a character that was as charismatic, as memorable as any of Clint Eastwood's characters ever were, too. I mean, the reason we remember Quentin so well is because of David's portrayal and how great he really is as an actor. I mean, you can't help but fall in love with this character, no matter how shrewd he is to women, no matter how the way he grabs them and manhandles them at times, the way he kisses them, because when he kisses them, they kiss him back. It's like they can't help themselves, and you sort of get why that. Hey, this guy's attractive. He's handsome. He's all over me. Why not? It sort of gets into the old logic of women wanting attention from an attractive male. And that's certainly the case here with these women of Collinsport. When you look at Beth, when you look at Charity Trask, they want attention from a male. And there's no male, there's no other male who is willing to give you attention quite like Quentin Collins. I mean, look, he's been married to Jenny. He left Jenny. He goes on a trip with his brother's wife. Guys, I'm sorry about that. Let me say that again. He leaves his wife, Quentin Collins, who was married to Jenny. She, Magda Ricosi, Jenny Ricosi Collins. I'm sorry, it's just what I think about this. This is crazy. Um, Leaves her and goes on a trip with his brother's wife. I was talking to Mark Gilman and Daniel Culver about Season of the Witch. You know, If Dan O'Healy had not played, or sorry, not Dan O'Healy, if Tom Atkins had not played Dr. Daniel Chalice, David Selby damn well could have. Because he pretty much was playing that type of character with Quentin. I mean, he leaves he leaves his wife and goes on a romantic a trip just to sleep with her to Cairo to sleep with his brother's wife. I mean, hey, what's not to love, right? God, just can you imagine, like, just the craziness of this? And when you hear this, it's just like this is just insanity, and it is, but it's enjoyable insanity. It's moments like this that make you go, man, Quentin. At one end, you're going, Quentin is a dog. At the other end, you're going, man, this guy's living the dream life. In a way, he knocks up Jenny. He leaves Jenny. He goes on a romantic getaway with his brother's wife and has sex with her. He comes home like it's no big deal. He's trying to get it on with Beth, and most likely does. Then there's Charity Trask. Then there's Angelique. It's like Jesus Christ. This guy. Every time you turn around, he's got a woman. It's like, oh my God. And this again, this is not the Ghost we were introduced to, right? I mean, can we sit there and say that I sort of this is sort of where I see Patrick's point. When I go every time I see this Quentin that we're seeing in 1897, I see no real glimpse of the actions that is that Ghost. I mean, there's some manhandling of women that I sort of could see the Ghost doing, but when he's just philandering around, it's just like, what the, like, there's no way that's that guy. that's, that's the one thing I'll point to. Now, with Charles Delaware Tate, mind you, this is somebody who's not, how do I put this? Yes, he likes women, but I wouldn't call him a womanizer. Um, at the same time, he gets. It's really interesting how you're introduced to Charles. Charles Delaware Tate arrives in Collinsport. He comes up to Collinwood, and when he has a conversation with Gregory Trask, even Gregory Trask is sort of like, what are you doing here? Like, because their interaction, he shows him a letter that he received from Edith Collins to paint Quentin Collins's portrait, that she commissioned it. And he looks at this, he goes, well, Edith Collins died sometime. Just when did you get this? And he says, and he's like, you know, I'm going to say this. I'm going to give Gregory Trask some credit. And I don't do this often with heels. If Gregory's mind would not have been preoccupied with scheming, I think he would have, and I do think to a degree he detects some bullshit, but he's not really calling it too hard here because, again, he's got other schemes he wants to pull off. So you have, okay, whatever, and just like, okay, we can't, well, Quentin can't pay you, he doesn't have any money, and he goes, well, that's no matter, Charles Delaware Tate doesn't seem to care about money. And in reality, when you think about this, why would he? He's a famous painter. He's probably been paid many times handsomely. So a portrait he would be gladly to do for free. Now, when he meets Quentin, things get really interesting. Quentin tells him, well, I don't want my portrait painted. Well, why would I want that? He's not interested here. So he doesn't, even Quentin himself doesn't really understand. Like okay, this is where things seem really odd. Because now Quentin is saying, even he's sort of like, I don't want it. I mean, Quentin is preoccupied himself, when not with women, with, the hand of Patofe. So if he's not in the bedroom, he's searching for the hand. Oh my God. So Charles Delaware Tate, with no one that we know of permission at the time, starts painting Quentin's portrait, and he steps away. Then, when we see Aristide down in Patofe's head lair, someone's coming down the steps. And when it's Tate, I'm just thinking, well, maybe he has a business. Maybe he's going to paint. At first, when this first happened, I thought that Tate was going to paint Patofe's portrait. Patofe has money, he has, yeah, he has no problem producing, cash. I mean, here's a man who has multiple identities, so money is no big deal to him. And that's what I thought at first, but then you get Tate and Aristide's interaction with each other as they're talking, and you find out Tate is working for Count Andreas Patofe, and that is one of the most shocking things of 1897. But look, we know Aristide doesn't really care for Quentin, or any, because again, Patofe just wants to use Quentin. But Charles Delaware Tate, here's the one thing Patofe can't really control: another man's hatred for another man. And Charles Delaware Tate can't stand Quentin Collins. He's envious of him. He's jealous of him. He sort of wants to live the life that Quentin has in many ways, minus the werewolf curse. But he can't, because he's not a Collins. And in many ways, I'd like to tell Charles Delaware Tate, be careful with that one. Being a Collins, it's not all it's cracked up to be. And it's not. We've all seen the burden that is being a Collins. It's not a cakewalk by any means. By the time 1897 happens and we're introduced to all these other characters, we know that the life of a Collins is no easy task. So Charles Delaware Tate it's not that he wants these women. He wants one woman in particular, and that's the woman he created, Amanda Harris. Problem: Amanda Harris. Guess who she wants to be with? Quentin. Quentin. When I say Quentin had his pick of the litter, he really did. I mean, this guy could pick any women. Any. And, again, he was a womanizer. Charity Trask, Nancy Barrett's character, has the line of the century. She goes, why don't, she says something to the effect of, why don't you go to town, you're going to go into town to see one of your sluts. That is said, and it is said in such a way that, I mean, we've been thinking it this whole time, that this guy, it's not that they're his sluts, or they're, he's paying them or anything. In many ways, I'm not saying Quentin's a pimp, but he has, how do I put this, pimp-like qualities. There are many characters that I think are secretly inspired by David Selby's character. One is Han Solo. One would be Han Solo. And if you look at Han Solo and David Selby's performance as 1897 Quentin, you just might see it too. Not saying you will, you might. Again, when you think of Quentin, here's this man. Now, David Selby's character, the only thing he got left in the will of Edith's will was he got to stay in the house for free. He had no real money of his own, The family's rich, sure, but he's not. But he gets to stay in the house. All right. He gets to live free of board, and he gets to live his normal, leisure lifestyle. That is until he finds out that Jenny Collins, his ex-wife, is actually still alive. She tries to kill him and does. He comes back to life. He kills her and then is cursed by her sister Magda to be to become a werewolf. In many ways, what Charles Delaware Tate could really never understand is how good he really had it. And there's proof of this in 1897. Yes, working with Count Patofe can be strenuous, but so is most jobs. But as long as you were loyal to Patofe, he rewarded you. Go ask Aristide. That is, until Aristide stuck the knife in him, not knowing. Remember, Tate's powers are removed by Patofe, and then Patofe gives them back. I think it took that for Tate to realize, okay, now I get it. That's the moment Tate realized how good he had it. There's a big the one, are there missed opportunities in Dark Shadows? Sure. The biggest missed opportunity in Dark Shadows is the confrontation between a future Charles Delaware Tate and David Selby's Quentin Collins. Now, what I wish would have happened, and I'm not playing Monday morning quarterback here, is that Charles Delaware Tate would have painted a portrait of himself. And we always see these portraits of Englishman Hill coming around, right? There would have been one specific portrait of the Evans, of the cottage, of what it wasn't called the Evans Cottage in 1897. I forget what they called it, where Tate was staying. There would have been a portrait of that. They move it back. It's the portrait, and we think, oh, it's just a portrait of the where the old Evans Cottage started out as, when it wasn't the Evans Cottage. We see a young hand pull back the portrait. There's the young portrait of Charles Delaware Tate. He painted himself, giving us the definitive proof that Patofe is out there somewhere alive. But not even Tate knows where. Tate doesn't know where he is. Patofe's not making himself known. Remember, when Patofe comes to Collinsport, he doesn't make himself known as Count Andreas Patofe. So why would he make himself known in the present day yet? He wouldn't. That is something that I think was the biggest missed opportunity in Dark Shadows. One of the biggest. Again, we get an elder Charles Delaware Tate being confronted by Chris Jennings, and why not? And eventually Charles Delaware Tate unfortunately dies by the hand of the werewolf. Again, when Charles Delaware Tate finally realized how good he actually had it with Patofe, he finally understood. Hey, you can't be someone you're not. Now you can say, what about Patofe? Patofe could pose as anybody. Tate needed to be Charles Delaware Tate, not try to want to be Quentin Collins. And that's a lesson Charles Delaware Tate had to learn. And he did. Now, when Charles Delaware Tate died, I wasn't upset by it because, again, he is an old man. But had they pulled that young thing off, that whole, well, Patofe's still out there, that would have been really, really intriguing. Alright, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. And by the way, before I go, the reason Chris Jennings is looking for Charles Delaware Tate, Charles Delaware Tate completed the portrait of Quentin Collins, which is why Quentin can no longer be the werewolf. The werewolf turns to the portrait, is inside the portrait. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Have a great day.